Well, it's Friday again, and we have got a lovely little Renault Clio in that's having 2 front coil springs. So let's get involved. The first thing that we need to do is just remove the scuttle panel so we can gain access to the strut top mounts. Now we've got the scuttle panel removed, there is 2 parts to it. Let's concentrate now on the strut top mounts. What we're going to do, remove these 2 back ones, both sides, and leave this front one in. We're just going to slacken it off, so when we take the vehicle up, we can just reach over and get it out. Now that we've got the vehicle raised, we need to get yourself a little wire brush on a drill. If you haven't got one, a normal wire brush is going to do. And you're going to clean up all these threads on the anti-roll bar link and the pinch bolts on the strut. Once you've cleaned everything down and made it look like brand new, get yourself some of the finest smelling penetrating fluid that you can get and give everything a little bit of a squirt of Rooney. Now let's move round to removing everything. We've got the anti-roll bar disconnected. There is a little bracket by there. A lot of people do leave them on. I just pull them off. It just makes it easy to get to these bolts. Anyway, let's get them off. Now whenever you're removing a shock absorber and you're removing these pinch bolts, remember that your drive shaft can quite easily just pop out the gearbox and you've got a pool of oil underneath you. So what I've done, I've got my exhaust hanger bracket. Let me just get my torch Rooney to show you. Just there through the top of the hub and round some bracket. Anyway, I'll do. And that now is nice and secure. Now that we've got the McPherson strut nice and loose, what we can do, get yourself a little stool, unless you're 12 foot tall. Get your ratchet now, and with the other hand, hold the strut, and you can remove that last bolt out of the strut top. Now that we've got the strut off, before I do anything, even remove the spring, I like to mark the top mount to the spring cup on the shock, so when we're putting it back together, everything is lining up correctly, and you shouldn't have any problems in aligning everything up. Right, let's get it in the spring compressor. Now we've got the strut in the spring compressor. Before, what I like to do, my method, is the bolt holding the shock absorber in, slacken it off before you take the weight off the spring. Just makes it a little bit easier, but do not wind it all the way because the spring will hit you in the face. Anyway, let's get it compressed. And there you have it, that is 1 coil spring removed. Now let's move around to the driver's side, and what I'm going to do here is do a little bit of a time lapse for you. Now let's get these brand new coil springs fitted, but before we put them on, make sure that your spring cup down here is nice and clean and there's no stones in there. Then we can just get it on and get it compressed. And there we have it, that is the coil spring fitted back to the strut, and everything now is lining up perfectly, just to make the installation just a little bit easier for myself. But before we do, the 3 bolts that secure the top mount to the chassis, I always like to put a tiny little bit of copper slip, so if it ever breaks again, it is going to make the next technician's job a lot easier. And there we have it, that is the passenger side all built up now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little bit of a time lapse installing it. Now that we've got the vehicle back on the deck, we can jump around and we can tighten all the 6 bolts for the strut top mounts. I'm not going to bore you putting all the trim back together, it is a boring job. And once I've done that, I'm going to torque all the wheels up and take it down the road for a little bit of a test drive. Anyway, let's get it sent.